Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Troy McClung, and glad to be with you all for another episode here. Seems like August is going by in a blink of an eye. As I'm trying to do 2 podcasts a month, I looked at my calendar and realized, oh my goodness, it is already the mid of August, and I have not released my first podcast for August. So apologize for that, and apologize to Jamie Miles in advance. He's next up on our list, and so he's was patiently awaiting for me to release this podcast. So Jamie, I apologize, but here you go. Quick updates before we dive into the discussion with Jamie. Here lately, we've been dealing with rain. It's funny. I think the last time I came on the podcast, we talked about the drought. We've gone 4 weeks total without any measurable rain whatsoever. And now, in the last 2 weeks, I believe we've had all the measurable rain we can handle. And Tropical Storm Fred is coming our way. In fact, the time of recording this, he's supposed to show up within the next 24 to 48 hours, I believe, over West Virginia. So we'll see what that looks like. Hopefully that's not a lot of rain. A couple inches we can handle as long as it's spread out a little bit. And speaking of rain, what I was supposed to be doing this week was operating an excavator. I had rented one for the entire week to do some work here on the farm, to do some improvements, to get some water management taken care of, ironically enough. But that has been postponed due to the weather. There's no sense in bringing in a piece of heavy equipment when it's just going to rain and rain and rain, because here in West Virginia, you just make red clay mud and then you can't do anything. So we're going to forego operating the excavator. I think we may wait a couple weeks, may even step into September when things maybe cool down and dry up a little bit. Hopefully, we'll see. All right, so to dive in with our interview is, as I mentioned, is Jamie Miles. Jamie is kind of new to pastured piggery, but he's not new to farming, and I think you'll appreciate what he has to say here. He'll pick up on some of the experiences he's had in other areas, and then his foray into pastured piggery. So we'll let him take over. He's with Seven Stands Farm in North Carolina. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. This evening, we travel to North Carolina to talk with Jamie Miles of Seven Stands Farm, who would say that he's just kind of venturing into pastured piggery here in the last year or so. So welcome, Jamie. How are you today?
Oh, I've had a good day. It's been quite warm here and dry, but it's been a good day.
All right. So whereabouts are you in North Carolina?
I live in western North Carolina. If you're familiar with Appalachian State, Mountaineers football, then I live about, 40 minutes from them, a little bit west of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember Appy State. When I was at Marshall way back in the 90s, they would play Appy State from time to time, it seems like.
Yep.
All right. So tell me a little bit about Seven Stands Farm. Give me that 40-foot elevation view of it.
Well, Seven Stands Farm, the name came from, we originally started with honeybees. Me and my dad had been kind of a hobby for a while, and we kind of got a little bit larger into it and was trying to figure out a name. And my son one day was probably in, 4th or 5th grade, and he said, let's call it Seven Stands Bee Farm, because I only had 7 hives of bees, or stands that we call them here around our area. And so that name stuck, and I just kind of dropped the bee out of the farm, and I just use Seven Stands Farm now.
Yeah.
So we have done honeybees for a few years, and got into goats, but for the last 6 months, I've been into pigs, and went with a good friend, and he just wanted. Actually, I've been telling my wife for about 3 or 4 years I wanted to raise pigs and kind of get her to smile, because she come from a farm, and she said she hates pigs. But one day, one of my friends says, "I'm going to Virginia November the 20th of 2020. And got my first processing date with two of those on June the 16th. So almost kind of made one full cycle of it.
Yeah, getting close.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about your farm setup. What you said you had some honeybees prior to that, and what's the layout of your farm? Kind of size wise, infrastructure, that type of stuff.
Well, I personally only own about I don't know 6 or 8 acres here where I live now, and then I live on the corner of family land, like about 100 acres. So I use some of my property. I fenced in some of my uncle's property, and then I lease a little part of a neighbor's. Got about a 10-acre pasture that I lease, and we put honeybees on that, and we have about 30 head of myotonic goats that we use for meat goats. They're the fainting goats.
Yeah.
And I have a total at this point in time, I think there's 9, I got 9 pigs, ranging from my first ones, like I say, were brought to the farm on November the 20th, and then I think I got a couple more in February, and then I got 2 more just in March, I believe. So.
All right, yeah. So you're just kind of acquiring them as they come available. As you're looking for, are you looking for a specific breed? What's your motivation there?
Well, I started out with 4, and really one of those was my son-in-law and daughter. They wanted to raise one out for themselves, and I've watched your video, and your recommendation is always try 3, and maybe the 2 of them will pay for the 1. So that's why I started with 4.
Gotcha.
And then they're kind of just a Hampshire, Yorkshire, and Duroc mix. Then I started reading about different breeds, and kind of just out of curiosity fell on the Hereford breed. So I got 3 of those from just, I actually found a lady lives within about 20 minutes of me that had them, and I had no clue until I found her on Facebook. And just kind of, I won't say a novelty, but just to try something different than my friends and people had tried before. So I bought 3 of those, and then went back and bought 2 more. Just kind of got some extra processing dates, and people are saying they want to buy, and I've already got the first 2 processed. I've got 3 halves sold, so kind of been a little faster than I anticipated, but
Yeah.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And that of course is the motivation to keep going and expanding and adding some additional elements there. So that's good. So it sounds like you've got, between the acreage you have and what you lease and the family land, sounds like you've got quite a bit of opportunity to expand there in your pig operation if you need to get bigger, or your goats, or your bees, or whichever. So it sounds like you've got that covered pretty well. But so why last year during the pandemic was that the deciding point for the pigs? Was it just simply because your buddy was going to Virginia and you thought, well, now's the time?
Well, honestly, I had watched videos of homesteading and videos of pigs for, just honestly years, and wanted to do maybe, pastured poultry for my own personal use. Then I kept saying, well, I want pigs, and every time I just kind of backed out or just didn't really pull the trigger, so to speak. And I think the pandemic may have kind of pushed that over the edge a little bit about being somewhat sustainable. I mean, I don't expect that I'll ever raise every bite of food that I need for myself, but, I am happy and proud to be able to do, at least part of what we can eat, or even can, the farm can maybe make a little extra income or sell, as well. So I think the pandemic really had a little bit to do with kind of
So when you were talking about your goats, had you been raising goats for a while, and is that just for your own personal consumption, or are you selling that meat?
Actually, we've been raising goats. I'm in my third year of goats. That was the first animal other than a chicken. We had some chickens for eggs. I mean, 8 or 10 chickens was the most I think we got up to. But we had some chickens, and then that kind of led into me wanting to do something else. And I chose goats because I don't really feel like I have the infrastructure for cattle. They're kind of large. I don't, have really a tractor right now. I've just recently bought one and I bought it, needed some repairs, so we're in that process of that as far as the infrastructure. But the goats kind of just came about. I like goats, and, I thought it'd be something neat to get into, and then we had a friend, and he gave us some meat, so we use it for our consumption as well as we sell sort of a breeding stock. We have a registered herd along with just some meat goat herd as well. So we got some just for consumption, some for seed stock, and some for show. So we kind of in a little niche market with a feigning goat there as well. And then that led to the pigs. And I don't know how that kind of went from goats to pigs, but it just seemed like the right fit at the right time.
Yeah, just seemed like a natural progression. So I got to ask, when it's time to process the goats, since they're the feeding goats, is that you just kind of go out and clap your hands, and whoever goes stiff, you just toss them over your shoulder and go on in?
Well, not really exactly like that. Of course, it's like everything else. They're kind of a slow heritage breed or landrace breed, so they take about a year to year and a half to get to, a size and a weight that you'd want to have processed. They are breeds that grow a little faster, and we're kind of actually have bought a buck from one of those breeds and going to do some crossbreeding and try to get in that market a little faster for meat goats. And the processing plants, they do the same. They process them or will cut them just like they do pigs, so you can get a USDA inspected processing, and we can sell goat meat as well. And it also, just like you said, if you wanted to process one of those on your own for your own home, it's kind of like being a deer hunter and processing your own deer. They're really about the same, kind of the same way.
Yeah, good deal. So you talked about with the pigs that you were getting, some was convenience, and then others specific breeds that you were trying out. So with having those crosses, the Hampshire Yorkshire Duroc cross, and then now the Hereford, or if my British grandmother was still alive, she'd correct me, it's Hereford. But and then you also have some Berkshire cross in that as well, right? So have you landed on a breed that you like the best, or something you want to explore more?
Well, I really like the shape and the size. I like the shape and the look of my Herefords, and color and all. But they do tend, and the ones that I have seem to be growing a little bit slower than either my Berkshire or my Hampshire Duroc crosses. So I think I'm kind of leaning in that Berkshire and Duroc area. The Berkshire, for meat quality, and I can't speak from experience, but from all the reading, they're kind of anybody that talks about meat quality seems to speak of the Berkshire. And then from the Duroc aspect, if you want to talk about speed of growth, everything I've read, and there again is YouTube and reading from my only 5.5 months of experience, is that the Duroc has a little, maybe just slightly less meat quality, but outgrows the Berkshire, a little bit faster. So I'm kind of thinking maybe get that cross going. I don't know, Berkshire Duroc cross, and get some of that, hybrid big pure breed. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good. Well, it sounds like you've done some research and reading up on it, and that's key. And then, of course, the experience you get and what you have on farm will be the real telling point there. So let's talk about your setup a little bit, and maybe let's start here since you're kind of just breaking into pigs. What would you say right now, Jamie, has been your biggest challenge getting into pigs?
I'd say the biggest challenge is knowing. I guess the biggest challenge is knowing when to move. I'm really wanting to do kind of, small paddocks and moving them, because I don't have this huge, large area of space to put them in right at this moment. So just trying to get that fine line of, you don't want it to look like a moonscape, but you want to get as much time out of one area as you can. So the movement on them has been really, really kind of hard to figure out for me. And of course, you think you get it figured out, and then they've gained 50 pounds, looks like overnight, and then you got to move them quick because they're much larger than they was almost a week ago, seems like.
Yeah, they're definitely a curve to that when it comes to the consumption from day to day as they get bigger. So how do you have your how would you describe your pastures right now? Are you good, pristine pasture? Are you kind of overgrown? Are you woodlot? What are you working with right now?
Well, actually, I'm working with probably 80% wood, and then along the edge of the wood, kind of that rolls down into a creek, probably 20% pasture. Definitely not pristine. It was all grown up. And the reason my neighbor actually, my neighbor let me even put pigs there on the lease, he was kind of a little bit, when people think of pigs, they think of moon craters, of course, but he had a set of woods that he wanted cleaned out a little bit that's gotten really overgrown that my goat pasture didn't kind of take in. So I talked him into letting me put some pigs on there, and we're running basic like a poly braid with a couple of wires after we've done a training pen, and that's what we're keeping them in with. They seem to really like the woods more than they like just the open pasture or grass. I mean, they eat it and root it, but they tend, in my experience, what little it is, they love to stay in the woods.
Yeah, especially I assume this time of year, that North Carolina sun would really be encouraging to be in the woods as well.
Absolutely.
So with that fence set up, as you move them, is that do you have like a permanent backbone up in the woods and then down near that creek, and then you have dividers, or you just kind of doing everything temporary right now just to see how it flows?
Well, I have a permanent backbone fence. It's kind of the back side of my goat pasture, which is in field fencing, and then I just took two wires, or actually one wire, and ran along the creek, right on the edge of the bank of the creek. It kind of just zigzags up the creek several hundred yards, and so I actually have a fence on the top above and a fence below, and then I just run temporary wires between the two of them.
Yeah.
And the bottom one is hot. Of course, the one next to the creek is where my basic hot wires, both of those are. And then, of course, I just use like a bullnose or a donut insulator and tie it to a post on on the backbone of my fence, my mesh fence. I'll just run just kind of domino down the line each time. Just move it and let them move over, and then I'll put another one up and let them in the new paddock, and then take the wire down, the third wire from behind me. So two sides of my fence are what you would say permanent, even though one of them is the poly wire, and then the ones in the middle just keep getting moved forward.
Yeah, good deal.
3 weeks or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like a one-legged alleyway setup where you're just moving those. In my mind, I'm picturing vertical. So you're moving those vertical so you can get them to move left to right or right to left pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I really found out about that system that works great for me is, of course, when you get set up for the new paddock, you basically have 3 wires there, 3 vertical wires for a short period of time. And if your pigs don't want to move, I just pull the feeder in and fill it back up, and I just leave, for 30 or 45 minutes, and inevitably every time I come back, they've just walked themselves over, and I gate the other one, the middle wire off, and then I can just go to the one that's the farthest back and roll it up and get ready to move it over to the next one. So
yeah, good deal.
I'm not really pushing them or, stressing them, I guess. I'm not stressing myself, I guess I should say. I'm just sort of letting them do their own thing and move over when need be.
Yeah, that's nice. When you do that, when you have those individual paddocks and do that leapfrog process with that wire and be able to just let them move at their own pace. Usually their stomachs will win out over their trepidation at some point.
That's one thing that I've totally learned. If you want a pig to move, just let the feeder run out for a few hours, move the feeder, and then pour the food in, and their stomachs will do the moving for them.
Yeah, that's how Kelly motivates me most of the time as well. So yeah, it's very effective for a lot of people.
I think my wife would say the same thing.
Right. So with that setup, how are you providing water to them? Are you able to take advantage of that creek to be able to pump some water out, or are you transporting, or do you have hose, plumbing, that type of stuff?
Well, it's funny you ask. I emailed you, I don't know, back when I first was starting to build the infrastructure, knowing my pigs were coming, and asked you about, how would they erode the creek bank and all. And since it's leased land, I didn't let them go into the creek because you said, they would kind of wear it out coming up and down the bank for sure.
Yeah.
So my biggest concern was going to be water, and the crazy thing is I started just, again, YouTube and just sit at night and look for cheap little pumps, and I actually found what's called a drill pump.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the size of a baseball or something, but I hooked my cordless drill to it. I got one end that sets in I got one sort of a suction hose, I guess. It's just a piece of 1/2 inch hard plastic pipe that sets in the creek. And then I just use my cordless drill, and I can fill up my 55-gallon barrel, one of them, with one battery in about 7 or 8 minutes. So
oh, good. Wow.
The system I was really skeptical of it, but on Amazon the price was like $11, so I really wasn't out that much.
Right.
So I give it a shot, and the first one I bought was not a good one. I bought it, I think, Harbor Freight. I don't know if I messed it up or if it tore up, and then I bought a different brand. But this second one, it's just low maintenance, and I guess it's kind of to be a farmer and depend so much on a $12 pump. But I've got an extra one if that one goes out, and I've used it for 6 months now.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a video on your YouTube channel detailing that, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I got a video about that on my YouTube channel as well, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put a link to your channel down in our show notes so you people listening can check that out. So you're pumping that water with that drill pump. You said into a 55 gallon. So you have that in your paddock. Is that set up on pig nipples? How are you using that?
Yeah, I've got the 55-gallon barrel set up in my paddock with pig nipples on it. Actually, I'm running 2 of them now since it's hot, and I've got in my big paddock with the bigger pigs. I've got 7, that are almost 7 months old to 5 months to 7 months old. I've got 7 in there. So I found on a almost one barrel will not be enough, so I'm running two 55-gallon barrels, and they won't completely empty those, but I just want to make sure they have plenty of water.
Yeah.
And then I'm running just a small kind of bucket system and a bowl system, and with my two youngest Herefords that I have they're just about 2.5 months old, I think, and I've kind of got them trailing along in the paddock behind the big pigs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So just to tag along there, that was what I was going to ask you, if you had a separation process. But even with your 5-month-old and 7-month-old, are they distinguishable enough in color or size that you can tell them apart? Or have you tagged them? Have you run into anything there?
Well, the 7-month-old ones are the Hampshire, Yorkshire, Berkshire crosses, and then the 5-month-old are the Herefords. So they're two different breeds, and so they're really easy to tell. The Hereford hog is like a Hereford cow. It's red with a white face.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you knew that.
Yeah, but that's good. So you obviously visually identify those, and sometimes when they get up to that 5, 6, 7 months, sometimes they start to fill out about the same. But that's the benefit of having those breed varieties. You can tell who's who pretty quickly. So have you found a need in that situation, especially being in North Carolina with the with that setup? Do you have a wallow? Have you found a need for it? Have you been able to accommodate that in any way?
Well, it's been kind of, I don't know, the area that I am running them through now, it's always been sort of damp where the kind of the ridge line meets the field almost before the creek. So the pigs have actually dug out a couple of springs there and made their own small wallows in the last 3 paddocks that I have.
Yep.
And since it's been really hot too, when I'm filling up my water barrel with my drill pump, I usually try to they've got a small area where they like to lay in the shade, and I continue to put a little water in there as well with the hose that fills the barrel, just to give them a little more comfort. And
yeah.
As I move out of that paddock, I've been raking it back down and kind of cleaning it up, making sure that the landowner doesn't have a big crater or anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely understand with them finding the springs. In all the years I've had pigs, I have never created a wallow because they know exactly how to find the spring and how to use that shovel on their face to make it accommodating for them. So they know what to do with it when they find it.
Yeah. One of the small areas that I came through, they created just dug out under what looked, just a little pine tree, probably 3 or 4 inches through. I had no clue, but now there's water running continuously, and they've got, I would say, 80% of their water out of that spring area that they had dug up themselves. That paddock, filling up the barrel was pretty. I didn't have to even do it, but almost every other day.
Yeah.
That spring running in there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's where. Yeah, that's infrastructure that can't be purchased. That's where you luck out and you're like, oh yeah, awesome. Vein of water right here. We're in good shape. So Jamie, looking ahead, so it looks like you've got a processing date coming up here next month in June. Obviously, by the time people hear this, you'll have already processed it. But and of course the various ages on these other pigs. But looking ahead a year, 2 years, what's your short-term goal right now with pigs? What are you wanting to do with them, and what improvements do you want to try to make, either infrastructure or property improvements?
Well, I think my short-term goal, or kind of a longer-term goal, would definitely be to try my at breeding. Actually, I'm going to keep one of the first 4 that I have and do an AI breeding on it. I've got a friend that has some pigs, and he's going to come up and help Chuck down at Chuck Lewis. He's running have more space, increase the numbers. As far as a barn, I don't have a barn for them or infrastructure, but I've been using some calf hutches that I purchased cheap that were kind of, a little broke up and old from an old dairy place. So I use those for the winter time with straw for them, but right now they don't even want to be in them. They don't want to be
right. Yeah. No, that's.
I guess see myself increasing in numbers, increasing in sales. I really, really, really would like to, in a few years, be able to retire from my public job and maybe come home and do, be able to make enough income to kind of do my own farming thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. Let the school pension kind of cover the basis, and that way you don't have a big nut to crack with the farm. That'd be a good setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So, what about you already said a barn? Are there any additional infrastructure, maybe purchases? I think you said something about maybe a tractor, or you got a tractor you got to do some work on. Are you looking at any big investments here over the next couple of years just for your pig operation?
Well, I really don't know for the pig operation. I am in the process of purchasing a tractor. I have got to the point that filling up pig feeders and moving things. I need a tractor, unloading feed and this and that. So that's my first big purchase. And when I say big purchase, it's by no means a new tractor. I've been trying to start small and grow into myself. I haven't went out and kind of borrowed money or nothing to raise pigs. So moving at a small pace, and sometimes it's sort of a snail's pace almost. And then I would like to get some more feeders maybe. I keep seeing the big, the big bulk feeders. They're hard to find in North Carolina, kind of in that used area, and I don't know that I want to, jump into a $2,000 feeder right now.
Yeah, that stuff gets expensive. Those Osborne feeders get.
Sorry,
Oh no! I just agree with those Osborne feeders. They can get pretty expensive pretty quick, and I agree with you here. It seems like this side of the Appalachian Mountains, there's not a lot of used equipment. In fact, I had to drive to Central Ohio to find my used one, and it was I just lucked into it because a guy had just listed it. But yeah, those type of infrastructure purchases, I definitely appreciate and respect what you're doing. You grow into it. Because the last thing you want to do is acquire a bunch of debt, and then you got to realize, man, I really got to be out and hustling pork chops to be able to pay for all this debt that I've acquired.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to see it happen, but if worse come to worse, my family and friends would have good Christmas presents, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They would have good pork for Christmas or something, nice bacon or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I really would like to, the hydraulic hog carts, they kind of interest me. I've been looking at them. I think for a pastured pig farmer that had several, I believe that would be a pretty neat something to have as far as loading and moving and transporting to trailers and stuff. So I'm going to need some kind of trailer too, but that's another purchase in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that stuff you just got to prioritize and figure out what comes first, and hopefully find some like-minded people around. All the years I've been raising pigs, I still don't need a livestock trailer, but I've got a neighbor who does, and so we have a great agreement there that works out. But if that falls through, then that'll have to be a purchase on the list at some point. But
well, that's kind of how I've made it in my farming for the last 3 years. My cousin, he does some goats and some farming, and we work really hard. We work really good together. He's got tractor and he's got post driver, for fencing, and he helps me unload feed and stuff for pigs and goats. And I have room to store, bucks for breeding, so I furnish bucks to breed his goats because he doesn't have found that my community and family, you know, working back and forth, we can help each other as well. And the small farm homestead kind of aspect of it, there's always that barter system that's worked out really good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of community and having people around you that are interested in similar things. That way you can help one another out and be a blessing to one another in those situations. Good deal. Well, Jamie, let me. I'm going to let you go here soon, but I gotta ask you the question I ask everybody. And in your experience so far, what is your favorite part about raising pigs on pasture?
Honestly, my favorite part is after you feed them, just to sit down on the bucket. And mine are they're pretty tame, but just sit down in the middle of them feeding, and then start come rubbing up on your leg, or kind of nuzzling, or pushing at you, or biting on your boots, or you start to rub one on its back, and it lays down and wants to let you rub its belly or whatever. They're not the dumb animal that a lot of people think they are. They're really fun for me to raise. They're just, I don't know what it is, but just to sit down and scratch a pig's back while you're sitting on the bucket in the paddock is just relaxing for me to come home.
Yeah.
And after a day at work and just come feed my pigs and sit down.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I agree. It is extremely entertaining. It's way more entertaining than anything you can watch on television these days. So.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, if people want to find out more about Seven Stands Farm, where can they find you online?
Seven Stands Farm on Facebook. I have that. Of course, you've already said I have Seven Stands Farm YouTube channel, and I'm working on a website, which I don't have that up yet. But Seven Stands Farm on Facebook is the easiest way to find me.
All right. Well, I'll share that in our show notes so you guys can, those of you listening, can check that out if you be so inclined. Well, Jamie, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and man, I hope like me, I hope we both get some rain sometime soon. I think we're forecasted to get it tomorrow, so hopefully you'll get some of it too, and we can get some of these dry spots filled back in.
Well, thank you very much for having somebody with as little experience as I have on there. I sure do appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's good. I love talking to all the eclectic variety of guests that we have, but I do enjoy talking to startups just to see what people are getting into, and I think it really helps encourage other people that are thinking about starting, and hear that it doesn't. You just did a great example of showing it doesn't take a ton of startup capital. It doesn't take a ton of land. It doesn't take all these huge investments. You just start at a point and get going. So no, I think it provides great insight, and I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, I pray you have a good evening and a good rest of the week, and we'll talk to you later. Well, I appreciate Jamie coming on the podcast and sharing his experiences with us as he's starting out. I think some of you that have reached out to me, or I've reached out to you, we've had some discussion, are a little reluctant because you just don't have a lot of experience under your belt, and you're kind of worried that what can I really add to the conversation. But I find those conversations just as intriguing as people that have had years and years of experience, simply because it's one of those things we can all remember back to those days of first starting out. Can either be nostalgic for us, it can actually make us a little nauseous because we think of some of the things we went through. But I just love all the different perspectives we get in these interview processes, and I hope you guys enjoy them too. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out our Patreon supporters. Again, I appreciate all of those who have taken the time to go on Patreon, support what we're doing here, and help invest in the expansion of this. We are so close to reaching our first 20 supporter benchmark, where we'll turn on some additional features that I'm hoping to have ready by then. So I'm hoping the two will collide about the same time. But just want to enhance the media presence of Pastured Pigs when it comes to audio and digital presence and those type of things. Just continue to hopefully be an asset to those of us that are raising pigs on pasture. So check that out if you haven't. Again, just as little as $5 a month would be a great help for us and allow us to move up to the next level. Still keeping our fingers crossed that our IT situations will improve here as soon as Starlink technology becomes available. where they said it would be before the end of 2021. So here we are wrapping up, almost to wrap up the 8th month. So there's just a handful of months left. So hopefully we'll get that, and that will allow me to have much better audio quality and some other key features that we can add, even do some live chats, hopefully in the future. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone listening and appreciate the feedback. If you would like to be on the podcast or you know of a topic you'd like us to discuss, by all means, visit redtoolhouse.com/pastured pig podcast and just give me a comment there in our contact form and we'll see what we can do. All right. I pray everyone have a great week. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.